Guests come around and you just whip it out and impress them straight away. That came out slightly wrong. G'day cocktail lovers, I hope you've been keeping well. I am going to make for you, and I'm going to talk about why I'm making this. I'm going to make another bottled cocktail. This is my current favourite cocktail. It's called a Woodson and Ford, named after the bar, which is now defunct, but it was the bar where the drink was invented. It's essentially a Vieux Carré riff, which in and of itself is essentially a Manhattan riff. So you're playing on the spirit and the fortified wine combination. It's just multiples in there. It's like a split base drink. And when I stumbled across the Woodson and Ford, I just instantly loved it, and I still love it. And I'm making this bottled cocktail because I'm going away for a weekend with Mrs. Angry, and while we will be going to some venues where other people make us drinks, this is our backup. This is to have in our hotel room, our very own bottled cocktail. It's one we both really like, and I'm going to show you now how I made it. If you're making yourself a base Woodson and Ford, it's rum, an apple brandy, sweet vermouth, and Benedictine. That's what's in it. But because I'm making it in the cocktail, I'm splitting that even further. So I'm starting off. This is a cherry rum that was made in Australia. The rums were imported from Trinidad and Tobago, and then they did macerations with cherries and other things, made an amazing thing. So the first thing I did, because I worked out essentially, 750ml bottle, there's about 90 mils in a standard Woodson and Ford, so it's about 8 drinks. So I just did 8 measures and I split it among things. So the first thing I did was 3 ounces or 90 mils of cherry rum. Mixing it up with the rums, I also went with this one, an Australian aged, they call it black. It's not quite black, it's a dark rum, 12-year aged rum from Bundaberg in Queensland, and I was doing the same amount, 90 mils or 3 ounces of this aged rum. For a little bit of fun, to round out the rums, I'm going Navy strength. I'm going with Smith and Cross, a very well-known Jamaican rum. It's 57% alcohol. That's going to beef it up a bit. And the reason I decided to go with a bit of higher proof is because the standard Woodson and Ford recipe said to use bottled in bond Laird's Applejack, which is 50% alcohol. I don't have that. It's basically impossible to get in Australia. The apple components I'm putting in are lower proof than the Laird's is. So I thought, what the hey, pick it up on the rum side. So I'm putting in about 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces, depending how generous I'm feeling with myself, of Smith and Cross. The Woodson and Ford has equal parts of the rum and the apple brandy. I'm splitting up the apple brandy too, starting with a French Calvados, and I'm going to put in 90 mils or 3 ounces of Calvados. Staying in France, this is an apple liqueur called Laird. It's much lower in alcohol than the spirits, which is one of my reasons that I gave myself the excuse of using the Smith and Cross. But I love the flavour of this one. It's one of my favourite liqueurs, and so I'm also adding 90 ounces. 90 ounces! That would be a big drink. 90 mils or 3 ounces of the apple liqueur. A little bit more apple brandy now. This is an Australian one from Tasmania, from the Belgrove distillery. They call it Apple Hatchet, and I'm finishing out the apple component by adding 2 ounces, 60 mils of some more apple brandy. Now for the sweet vermouth component, if you were making a single Woodson and Ford, you'd use 3/4 of an ounce of sweet vermouth. And when I said 8 parts, I mean ratcheting it up by a factor of 8 for this bottled cocktail. That makes it relatively easy to work out what to do. I just need to do 6 ounces of that. And I'm splitting that between 2 vermouths. I'm going to do 3 ounces of an Australian sweet vermouth from Adelaide, Unico's Yuzu Sweet Vermouth, doing 90 mils or 3 ounces of this. And I'm doing the same amount of Punta Mez, which is another full-bodied vermouth, not as sweet as the Yuzu, but that's also sweeter than most sweet vermouths. So I think this will strike a good balance, and I'm doing 3 ounces, 90 mils of Punta Mez. For the herbal element of this drink, it's a comparatively lower amount. In a standard Woodson and Ford, you would have just 1/4 of an ounce of Benedictine. So multiplying by 8, you're going to end up with 2 ounces of herbal, but for fun, I split it again. So I'm doing 1 ounce or 30 mils of Benedictine, and slightly upping the alcohol content again to compensate for the lower alcohol apple elements. I'm going to do some green chartreuse. This is 55% alcohol as opposed to most spirits being around 40% alcohol. And again, I'm just going to do 1 ounce or 30 mils of green chartreuse. So that's how I made it, but I feel like saying, why did I make it? There are a couple of reasons. Like I said, one is I'm going away for the weekend and just having that handy pre-mixed bottle, so convenient. Just the convenience for yourself is great. But you know, just being able to reach into the fridge, there's my cocktail, there's my several cocktails. You gotta love how easy that is. And also, if you have guests, how good would that be? Guests come around and you just whip it out and impress them straight away. That came out slightly wrong. But what I'm saying is you can impress your guests by having some ready-made cocktails when they come around. Word of warning, if this is better with cocktails that don't have citrus in them. A lot of people really overstate about, oh, how quickly citrus loses its zest. But there is a deterioration in the brightness of citrus the longer it is after you've squeezed it. So I'd only really do one with citrus the same day I was going to serve it, or alternatively, do all the components apart from the citrus, get it out of the fridge, then add the citrus and shake it. But because this has no citrus, lends itself perfectly to batching. The other reason I really like making bottled cocktails is because you can add complexity. Like I said, with a standard Woodson and Ford is a great drink. It is my current favorite. But it's much easier if you're making a bigger batch to split the elements. When there's only 30 mils or 1 ounce of rum, you can split that between different rums, but it's a little bit harder to get a blend happening. If you're making a whole bottle of it, you can split it among multiple rums, or multiple vermouths as I did, multiple apple brandies, and you get a more complex drink. You get the different types of the rums and the brandies, etc., blending, and you get a more complex drink. Takes it to another level. It's just great. And in fact, nice little pop. I'm going to try that. Got my Nick and Nora chilling. Obviously, because I've had this in the fridge, I'm just serving it straight up. You would normally serve a Woodson and Ford straight up. I won't judge you if you put it in a rocks glass and put a big bit of ice in it. But yeah, it's a fantastic colour. Some very deep, rich colours in there, and oh, this is still my favourite. This is incredible. Yeah, and like I said, you can use your favourite rums, your favourite apple brandies, your favourite vermouths, and just really experiment. And then the other thing I love doing is it's a different drink each time. If you do it with a blend, you can tweak it and come up. It's the same basic drink, but it's got a slightly different character each time. Cocktail making's supposed to be fun in my book. You're supposed to be exploring. It's supposed to be a good time. You find a recipe you like, stick with it, but don't be afraid to play with it. Don't be afraid to freeform a little, explore what that can offer, because it's not always going to work, but occasionally you're going to come up with something great. And if there's one thing I could share with you, it would be explore, improvise. What's that thing? Adapt, improvise, overcome, well, get drunk. Just like it is. Anyway, I hope that's inspired you, or at least, have a drink you enjoy. If I inspire nothing else, just have a drink you enjoy. And whatever you're doing, look after yourself, look after the people around you, and until I see you again, I'll say cheers.